in the chat. Feel free to add your information there and look up other people that you would like to connect with or reach out afterwards, or people that you meet in the networking breakout rooms and want to stay in touch with beyond our session today. And as I mentioned, Catalyze is still pretty new, so we would also really appreciate your feedback. We'd love to hear how you like today's session and what you would like to get out of future sessions. So we have prepared a brief survey and we will share the link in the chat shortly. Oh, got to one too far. All right, about women in climate. What is Women in Climate? Women in Climate is actually turning 1 this month, so it's a big time of the year for us. And Women in Climate is a nonprofit that aims to create a joyful and safe space for women to learn and talk about climate. We're an inclusive and welcoming space. You don't have to be in climate to be a member. We actually have many members who are not working in climate yet, but are interested in learning more, maybe look into transitioning into the climate space one day, or are interested in volunteering or starting a side project in climate. Really, there's many ways that climate work can work for us as individuals, and there's really no one set way to do it right. So this diversity is really all what this community is all about. And that's also my story, actually. So I met Michelle through my former job at WeWork, where I was in charge of building community for founders. And once I met Michelle, I decided I wanted to help her build and grow the Women in Climate community. And now over to Michelle, actually. Please share a little bit about your background, about the beginnings of Women in Climate, what happened 1 year ago, and what has happened since you hosted our very first dinner in New York back in February last year.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stephanie. And if you can go to the next slide, super happy to see a really sort of vibrant room here. Lots of people introducing themselves. If you want to add your city to your name, that way people can easily figure out where everyone is. But I started my first Women in Climate dinner last year in February. And since then, we went from this kind of small 12-person dinner to sold out dinners, 30 people globally. Our London chapter just had their dinner last week, and there was over 30 people, and it was sold out again as well. And I'm headed to Lisbon and Munich next week, and I'm going to be hosting some events there. And really what I want to do with Women in Climate is to create a joyful and safe space. I want more women to be able to start their climate literacy and journey in a way that is not intimidating. They feel supported if there's any anxiety involved. And I think we've really done a great job of creating that space. And if you have friends that might be interested, please invite them. Our Slack group is free. Everything we do here is free. So we definitely want to recruit more and more women to take climate action together. And as our community grew, it also became important to me to give women who are taking climate action a voice and a platform to share their solutions and ideas. So when we do events and when we have programming, we highlight women speakers and women taking climate action. And to that note, Stephanie, if you can advance, we are really excited about our International Day Women's event. It's going to be bold, and several puns intended there. It's March 7th at 11 a.m. It's going to be about an hour and a half, and we have our speakers mostly confirmed, and we're going to start announcing them probably today. You definitely don't want to miss this because it's virtual, so grab a conference room if you have access to one at work, and grab your coworkers, watch it together. We're also encouraging our city leads or anyone in general to organize the happy hour in the city that they are. We're definitely going to have one in New York. We'll be releasing details on that next week. So we'll see you there. And one more, Steph. For Earth Day this year, instead of having our usual Catalyze, we're going to have a special event that is going to bring together our members and allow us to network globally like we do here at Catalyze. So save the date for April 5th. Earth Day is April 22nd, but we're going to make this an Earth Month celebration for us. So stay tuned for lots of fun things on the horizon. One more stuff. And if you are in a position to support us, we are a 501c3, $5 a month for some coffee for our volunteers. We have probably over 20 volunteers. Any amount to help us, with our operations is really appreciated, and we would be grateful. So thank you for that, and I'll hand it back to you, Steph.
Cool. What's on the agenda today? As I said, we have a few exciting things planned today. First and foremost, we will hear from two amazing speakers. Cecile and Anneka are on the agenda today, and you'll also get a chance not to just hear from them, but also to ask them questions. So feel free to drop any questions you have for them in the chat throughout their talks. And last but not least, as I already spoiled, there will be some networking at the very end. So we'll do 2 rounds of networking breakouts or more if we still have time and they're still in the mood. And that should give you a good opportunity to connect with other people from our community. All right, let's dive right in. We have our first speaker coming up, Cecile, who is the managing director at Time for the Planet, and she's based in London, I believe. Cecile, are you?
Yes,
Yes, cool. Let me spotlight you.
Yeah.
Cool. You're
Lovely.
on stage. Stage is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So indeed, I'm in London. So right now it's 5 p.m. I think in the US, you're a little bit earlier right now. So if you can go to the next slide. So my name is Cecile and I'm working in climate. So I'm working with a wonderful team that you can see just here. And we are actually quite a small team. So we are all on the picture so we are a small team of 10. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we are doing, but it's quite a lovely team and I'm quite blessed to work with them. So it's been 1 year and a half I'm working with them, but also, so I'm not only doing climate. So before I was doing climate, I'm an agronomy engineer. So I worked in agronomy for a while as a business developer, and then I went to climate after thinking about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to put my energy, and joined the team. And of course, sometimes I'm not working, hopefully. And so I love to be in the mountains or in the forest. And you can see, for example, me riding. So I'm doing a lot of horse riding. It's been pretty amazing this summer. I went to the French mountain because I'm French, even if I live in London. But it's also sometimes a bit hard when you go to the mountains because you can see, when I was in the mountains, we could see that the water was a big problem. It's very dry during the summer. So when you are with a horse in the middle of a mountain and you have some drought because of the weather and of the climate, it can be a little bit harsh, but it still helps to connect and to remember why we do all we do. So can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so I'll speak a little bit more about what I do specifically with Time for the Planet because I'm working full-time. So our goal is really to engage citizens and companies in a collective action. And it's also to fund and deploy the most impactful innovation in terms of climate. And so how do we do that? So first of all, we are a nonprofit citizen fund, which means that everyone can join. So it can be citizens, organizations, and we make sure it's very accessible. So it's possible to join from €1. And you can actually see in the picture, so with the team, we did an event for our shareholders, and you can see a lot of them. So some of them have only 1 share, some of them have 1,000 shares. We also have organizations who have more than 1 million shares, and the goal is really to bring everyone together. And we are nonprofit because when we invest in an innovation, so we do our first round of investment, then after a while we will have these companies generating profits, which will come back to Time for the Planet. But instead of distributing the profit to our shareholders, then we will reinvest everything in new companies. So basically our shareholders, when they put €1, for example, this euro is always working to do more impact instead of working to make profit. And that's the goal. But however, because they don't have financial dividends, they still need to have something to know what they what their money is doing. So we have what we call climate dividend, but I'll come back to this a bit later. But basically, our investors, their return is ton of CO2 equivalent that are captured or saved. And so that's the main goal why they invest. It's not for the money, but for carbon. We also use the power of entrepreneurship. So we know to have an innovation, a company that works, the most important thing is the execution. So we hire the best entrepreneurs to join the product we invest in. And this way we are sure that the execution is great, because you can have the best project and the best idea. If you don't have a good execution by the team, then it doesn't go to the market. And finally, because we think the innovation we are investing in can have a potential of impact that is really huge at the global level, we spread our innovation as fast as possible using two levers. The first one is open source models. So we use free license, which means that anyone can ask to use and to commercialize innovation for free. And then they will have a contract for the free license. And the other thing we use, the other lever, is the power of the community network. So today we have more than 100,000 shareholders, which means that this 100,000 people, they really want Time for Smile to work, and they really want our innovations to work. So they are really willing to help us with the network, with their skills and everything. So it's very, very powerful. If you can go to the next. And it's really important to do that, because we know that the solution exists. It's not me saying this, but it's the IPCC that says that lots of innovations, solutions to the problem we have with climate change are already existing, already have a proof of concept, but they are not hitting the market. And among the reasons why they are not hitting the market, one is that lots of innovators are not entrepreneurs. Some of them are, of course, but a lot of them are not, because they are engineers, they are scientists, and they are not really entrepreneur people, and it's a very different set of skills. Because of that, they are not really able to find a business model, so they don't find anything that make this innovation viable. So the company is not viable, it's not making profit. It's also hard then to get investment, because if you don't have a strong business model, then no one wants to invest. So it's a mix of everything. And so our goal is to find this innovation, reinforce the potential, and then make sure to make them be great company and spread the innovation. And it's important to do that because the decarbonization of our economy must be a priority. We know that we need to reduce our consumption as well. We need to do a lot of, I would say, small action added all together. But we also need to reduce the impact of everything we do, of everything we produce. Even if we produce less, we will still need to produce a lot of things for buildings, for example, all the health we have, everything like that. We still need to produce, and we need to make sure that when we produce everything we need, it will be as low carbon as possible. And also something that we see with a lot of citizens, they are kind of feeling like they can't do anything, and it's not their role to do anything. So they don't really know what to do. They try to do a few stuff, but it's really hard. And they are looking for a way to really act at scale. And Time for the Planet is a tool for them to do that. And it's really important to get citizens involved, to get them to really feel like they are doing something that is helping the problem. Because if you get lots of people depressed because they don't know what to do, then we don't go anywhere. So it's really important to give the tools to citizens so they can act to do something about climate change, especially because it's a quite stressful situation when you don't know what to do. And action is a great solution to help you go out of, the difficulty and, the stress around climate crisis. If you could go next. And of course, so we are trying to do our best, but it's still not that easy. And you probably know it if you are working on climate. There are still a lot of things that are not going quite as we would like. One of the things I think is quite key is that we need to make sure that the ecological transition is a key point of any net zero strategy. So basically, you have lots of companies having net zero strategies, and it's important now that they include investment in the ecological transition as well, not only, you know, compensation and all of that, because we need more than just compensating our emissions. We need to invest. And for that, we need a worldwide standard and a certified measure so everyone can compare the investments and the investors. And we actually build climate dividends at the beginning with other actors in Time for the Planet. So climate dividend, very simply, is one climate dividend is 1 ton of CO2 equivalent. And actually today, the CEO of Climate Dividend is part of Women in Climate. She's Laura Bollier. And so she's the one pushing that. So we helped to build it, but now it's not owned by Time for the Planet. We just use it as a tool. And so the Climate Dividend Foundation is doing a lot of work to make it a global standard. I also think it will be great to have climate return that are above, or at the very least at the same level as financial return. Today, we are quite a lot focusing, even for green funds, on financial return before the impact. I think it's essential that we have this on impact first. So I say climate, of course, there are other problems like biodiversity, for example, but you know, we need to have returns in terms of impact, climate, biodiversity that are at the very least at the same level of financial return. And finally, I do think that all companies must have a beneficial purpose for society. In France, for example, by law, a company is here to make profit for their shareholders, but you know, it shouldn't be the whole point of a company. It will make a lot more sense that companies have to have a purpose that is beneficial for society. And I would love to do that, of course. And that's it, I think, for this one. And the last small thing I wanted to tell you is I really think we have to play collectively on this one. It can be by helping Time for the Planet, it can be by helping other organization, it can be about working together. And I think Climate and Women is great for that, to connect with other people doing this. And we at Time for the Planet, we made sure that we play as collectively as possible. So for example, anyone can become what we call an assessor, which is someone who helps us to assess the project we receive. And you don't need to be an expert, you don't need to have any specific field or anything. You just need to take a quick training. It's 1 hour, and then you participate in a collective action. And we need lots of people to assess one project. If you're an innovator, of course, you can submit your product to us. It needs to be linked to climate for us, but you know, we need as many people as possible to help on everything. We are willing to help innovators, and especially scale up innovation that will have a great impact on climate. So if you have one, submit the product to us. Even if you end up not having the finance, you will have the return from the collective intelligence, which is always a very interesting thing, because you will have at least 50 people who will assess your innovation and give their feedback. And that's it. I think I'm about in the maybe a little bit more than the 10 minutes. Hopefully I'm around this. So now if you have any question, I didn't look in the chat if there was a question while I was talking, but if you have any question, more than happy to answer.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Cecile. Learned a lot. That was really impressive work you're doing, and so many things that I could not agree more on. It definitely helps to take action, and we need to get people who are depressed out of that depression and bring them on board to the action and show them what they can do. As far as questions are concerned, people are welcome to either drop them in the chat and I'll ask them to Cecile, or you can also just raise your hand and unmute and ask them directly. Let's see what we get. Oh, I have a hand from Charlotte. Charlotte, go ahead.
Hey, Cecile.
Hi.
I was wondering what within your work brings you the most joy?
Oh, that's a good question. I think probably just to, you know, we work with a lot of shareholders and citizens, and it's quite, sometimes we have very hard times, like, you know, you are trying to get a big investor, you don't get it, or you are talking with people and they really don't get it about climate. But then when we have like events with our shareholders and all of that, to feel all this energy, all these people who are really trying to do something with you, I think it's just the most incredible thing, the most incredible feeling, to get all these people together, trying to do their bit and really, you know, giving you all their energy. And I think that's probably one of the best things.
That makes sense. That's good to hear.
Great answer. Thank you, Cecile. Any other questions, either in the chat or
Yeah, hi,
directly?
Marie-Sophie here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, Cecile. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a few questions on the investment. So what kind of projects are you investing in? Can you give us one or two examples? And can you give us as well an idea of the kind of investment you are doing, the amount, at least a scale? That would be very interesting. And I'm very happy to submit my solution as well to you.
Oh yeah, you're more than welcome. You'll see if you do the process, it's made to be quite easy. So the kind of solution we're investing in, so basically we went from the 5 main emitter sectors. So you have the industry, agriculture, construction, energy, and transport. And then we thought like the 4 levers that are recommended by the IPCC to act. So it's energy efficiency, sufficiency, it's net zero, and I'm forgetting one. But so we made like a matrix. So I don't know. No, I can't share my screen. So, but on our website, you have like the 20 problems that came off this this matrix. And so just to give you an example, if we take, for example, the transport and you want to do zero emission, for example, you will try to replace petrol by something else, having EVs going more and more, reducing the batteries cost and emissions of the EVs and all of that, for example. So one of the innovation we have, for example, in transport at the moment is we have kites sails that you put on merchant boats, and it will reduce at least by 20% the consumption of fuel of these boats. So it's quite efficient and it's very easy to put in place. So that's one example that we do. We have different innovation. You can find them on our website. We can also have some in buildings. We are actually studying right now some in buildings to get buildings that you will have the wall the way they are built. It will just keep the heat and reduce the needs of heating. So this kind of things. And so what was the next question?
The level of investment you put in these solutions.
Yeah, so it depends a little bit of how much is needed. We have some investment which were 250,000 euros, which is the smallest one, and we've been up to 2 million. So it depends a bit of the needs. We can probably go more. We can go to 3 million, for example, if there is a need. So basically, when we do all the analysis of the project, we see what are the needs at the moment and how much we should invest. Sometimes we invest in 2 times as well. We had an innovation. We invested first 500,000 with a goal of sales for them. And once they did their goal, we invested 1.5 million more. So to give you an idea, that's more or less.
Okay, that's very clear.
Thank you so much for the questions. And thank you so much, Cecile, for all the information you shared. We also shared the Time for the Planet website in the chat. And speaking of the chat, we also shared a link to our Slack channel in case you're not on it yet. It's growing fast. We're actually about to reach 1,000 members. You could be our 1,000th member. Very excited for that. So if you're not on the Slack yet, make sure to join so you can connect with members from our awesome community around the world. Again, thank you so much, Cecile. And now it's time to move on to our second speaker for the day, Anneka.
Thank you.
The lead of Money Movers. Very excited to learn more about that.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And it is a joy and such a blessing to be here in this global community with you all. I've just one little favor to ask before I get started. If maybe 5 more people could turn their cameras on, it would just be so great to feel like I'm talking to humans. I'm at the end of my day here in the UK and I'm so tired. And so, yeah, just to like connect with you all a little bit would be really, really brilliant. Thank you. So as Stephanie shared, my name is Anneka Deva, and I'm the Money Movers lead, and I'll explain more about that in just a second. So next slide, please. Here are 4 pictures that share a little bit more about me. The first picture on the left is me carrying a sign that you can't see, but it says, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And that's a quote that many of you will be familiar with from Martin Luther King Jr. And as long as I can remember, I have felt the sharp sting of injustice. I was that kid when I was 5 years old saying, "It's not fair that my brother doesn't have to do the dishes and I do. It's not fair that I have to finish my pea and aubergine curry." I really hate aubergines. And I'd see these kids on TV who wouldn't have any food, and I'd be like, "Why can't they just have it? It's not fair." And I'd also feel like it's not fair that my grandmas can't play with me because they're too tired coming home from having worked these jobs in the factory. I didn't understand at the time that they were working 70-hour weeks in a factory for minimum wage. I just thought it wasn't fair that they couldn't play with me. And I grew up being told, yeah, thanks for the translation, Michelle. You'll please continue translating if there are other phrases that I say. But yeah, as I grew up, you know, I was told, well, life's not fair, Anneka, get on with it. Life's not fair. But the second picture is when my life changed, a weekend in Ireland, a place called Glendalough. I was 16 years old, and I went to this event that was just like a school trip. To be honest, I think I only went because there would be boys there, and I went to an all-girls school. And this weekend changed my life because it was a bringing together of young people from different communities, different cultures, from Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland, different communities, Black kids and Indian kids and Pakistani kids from Birmingham, coming together to talk about the world and the issues. And we had these incredible workshops. I could tell you a lot more about it. But the one thing that really stuck with me is this guy at the end of the weekend. His name was Colin Reagan, and I won't do a terrible Irish accent, but please imagine it. And he said to us, "You have more power as young people than you can possibly imagine." And that changed the course of my life. And really, I took it to heart, and took to heart the idea that we have power and that we have to use it. And the third photo along is of my Ajimai, my great grandmother in India. She is pictured in this photo in Dandi, which is a village on the coast of Gujarat in India, right next to the Arabian Sea and the ocean. And I think, you know, one of the deepest things for me is that I've cared about women's rights. I've been a raging feminist for as long as I can remember, in the words of Isabel Allende. And, you know, I really have really kind of grown up knowing how vulnerable women are, when they're at the mercy of decisions made by men. And how vulnerable in recent years really noticed how vulnerable that village is, the place where my mom grew up, the place where my family still live, on the coast of India, especially when we think about climate change and the climate crisis. And we know that the climate crisis is real. We know that flooding, droughts, and disasters are affecting people all around the world, including women. And the fourth photo is just how much I love stories and hearing stories. It's a picture of journals, and I journal all the time. And I've probably got, 100 journals or something. And that photo is just a snippet of one of them. So that's a little bit about me. Next slide, please. So why am I here? Well, I'm here to talk to you about Money Movers, which is a movement of women taking climate action with their finances. And I just want to give you a bit of a context in case you're not so familiar with, what does our money have to do with climate? In the words of the environmentalist Bill McKibben, money is the oxygen on which the fire of global warming burns. And so when we're thinking about the forces in the world around us and how we can make change, we have to think about power. And money is such a huge lever of that power, as Cecile has so beautifully pointed out. And you know, when you look at what the scientists are saying, we have to stop investing in fossil fuels. We have to do that now. The International Energy have said that. And yet when you follow the money, next slide, please. When you follow the money, our mainstream banks around the world, banks that many of us here in this room probably have an account with, have invested $4.6 trillion in fossil fuel expansion since the Paris Agreements on climate were signed in 2016. $4.6 trillion. And in the UK, the carbon footprint, the carbon impact of our pension schemes, so our 401ks, is 330 million tons of carbon every year, which is bigger than the carbon footprint of the entirety of the United Kingdom. So there are so many of us whose money is wrapped up in these systems that are investing in climate destruction. But the good news is that our money is powerful. And so a stat that I absolutely love from an organization called Make My Money Matter is that greening your pension, so moving your pension to a more sustainable pot, is 21 times more powerful for climate impact than stopping flying, going vegetarian, and changing energy supplier combined. And that stat is based in the UK, but is, I'm sure, replicable in many other places around the world. So we have a huge amount of power in our money. But next slide, please. As women, we're currently not using that power. And so there's a huge gender gap when it comes to finances from the decisions we make, with 62% of women leaving their long-term financial planning to a husband or spouse. And that's a global stat from UBS, to how much money we're actually set to have in the long run. So a woman, for example, a woman in her 20s in the UK will have £100,000 less at retirement age than a man of the same age. So these stats are kind of mind-blowing. But then when you realize that actually for women in the UK and the US, many of us weren't allowed to have a credit card or get a mortgage without the signature of a man until the 1970s, and in some cases the 1980s. Because women were seen as these delicate creatures who weren't capable of making intellectual decisions about finance. So, that for many of us is within, for some of us within our lifetimes, and for many of us within our mother's lifetimes, so there's this huge gender finance gap. And many of you will have seen the kind of rise of female financial empowerment, own your worth and make more money, girls that invest, and that's amazing. But so much of what I see is about women saving and investing for their future and becoming financially stable. And that's really important. But when I see it, I can't help but think, what's the point of being financially stable and getting rich on a planet that's on fire? And that takes us to the third stat on this slide, which is that when it comes to the climate crisis, women are disproportionately vulnerable. So 80% of people displaced by climate change are women and girls. And so whilst we are trying to get rich and become stable for the future, our sisters around the world are the most vulnerable to these climate impacts that we're seeing right now. And so the question is, what can we do about that? How can we, as women, use our money, use our power, and put it to work for a climate positive future? And Stephanie, if you could go back 3 slides to the one of the picture of all the women. Sorry to jump around slightly. Yeah, this one. That's where Money Movers comes in. So we asked the question, what if instead of feeling overwhelmed and alone and immobilized by the climate crisis, we could feel hopeful and joyful and like we had empathy? What if instead of the abstract, complex, kind of boring feelings that we have about money, we could feel like we were part of a group of people, a movement who are using our money and aligning that with our values. And so that's exactly what we've been doing at Money Movers, which is a movement of women getting together around dinner tables and Zoom rooms to talk about money and take climate action together. Hi, Stacey. Stacey's done the program. And so what it is we train women up as hosts. So we trained up Stacey as a host. Is that right, Stacey? Yeah. And Stacey gathered like 5 or 6 of her friends, her colleagues, her neighbors together to go through our 3-session program. And over the course of the 3 weeks, women get together, they dig deeper into these systems, and they really start to learn about how they can actually move their money for the planet and take action. Women take action. And the exciting thing is it really works. So in our pilots so far, 140 women have moved £1.2 million for the planet. And, you know, that number is growing rapidly. I'm excited to be updating that number in about a month's time. And yeah, really excited to unveil that impact for you soon. So at Money Movers, we are growing a movement of thousands of women who are coming together to take climate action, you know, together with each other as women, but also with the men, the non-binary, the gender fluid allies in our lives, so that we can use the power that we have and vote for a future that we actually want to pass on to our children and to future generations. So I can just see Michelle is telling me that I'm at time. I've got maybe 1 slide left. Do I have time to just do that slide? Is that all right, Stephanie? Michelle? Yeah, great. So just this one, which is if I could wave a magic wand, which I just adore as a prompt. If I could wave a magic wand, we would see women at the forefront of climate leadership. We would see women from all walks of life, not needing to be experts, but they could be, coming together with each other to make change. And I see that through things like Women in Climate, through things like Money Movers, but also things like the All We Can Save initiative, where you can start a women's circle to learn together. And things like a People's School of Climate Justice. So the slide in the middle is made up. There isn't currently a Birmingham, UK People's School of Climate Justice, but there is a Dudley People's School of Climate Justice, which is just up the road from Birmingham. So that's people coming together and learning with each other about how they can take climate action and growing a solidarity movement so that we can feel more hopeful and more powerful about what we can do to create a different future and to create a different history. So I'll stop there. But yeah, very, very excited to be with you here today.
Thank you so much, Anneka. My favorite, I think I was like torn between paying attention and leaving comments in the chat and also switching your slides. I was like challenged here, and it was like, so you're such a great speaker. And someone in the chat is saying, give this woman a magic wand. So I think we all agree on that. We're all on the same page here. So thank you so much for sharing. I think we unfortunately are out of time and have to move on to networking, but some lucky people will be in a networking breakout room with you. And of course, others can also reach out to you, right, Anneka?
Yeah, absolutely. Please get in touch with me. All my details are on the slides that will be sent out afterwards. So yeah, I would love to talk more about this initiative and also how we can bring it to a global audience. You know, how can we bring it? How can we pilot this in the US? Like maybe you have some funder who is able to support a pilot in the US. Really excited to look at that.
Awesome, cool. And we'll also make sure to include your information in the Google Sheet networking doc that we created and already shared earlier.